Mars was born Robert Allen Deal in Terre Haute, Indiana in 1951, soon after his family moved to Huntington, Indiana. Before he was 9 years old, his family relocated again, this time to Garden Grove, California. He realized he wanted to become a musician at only 3 years of age, when his parents took him to see country singer Skeeter Bonn at a local 4-H fair in Indiana. He was wearing a bright orange outfit with rhinestones all over the place, and a big white Stetson hat. I went, "I'm doing that, that's what I want to do." His parents bought him his first guitar at age 12, and he began a relentless practice routine, thinking only of becoming a successful musician. He began at age 14 as bassist in a Beatles cover group called the Jades before switching to lead guitar. He dropped out of high school and began playing guitar in a series of unsuccessful blues-based rock bands throughout the 1970s. In his early 20s, he took a job in an industrial laundromat operating heavy machinery while moonlighting with his band Watoshi in the local club circuit. After recovering from a serious injury to one of his hands suffered in a workplace accident, he quit to focus on music full-time. In 1973, he joined a cover band called White Horse, and soon began to be recognized as an accomplished guitarist. He could copy parts note for note. You give him Highway Star, and he could nail Ritchie Blackmore's riffs, said ex-White Horse bassist Harry Clay. Former White Horse drummer Jack Valentine says that Mars began using various aliases in the 1970s, such as Zorky Charlemagne, as a means of avoiding the police, as he was behind on child support payments to ex-girlfriend Sharon, the mother of 2 of his children. Anytime we got pulled over by the cops for a taillight or whatever, and the cops saw his ID, they'd throw him in jail. We'd have to figure a way to get him out, recalled Valentine. White Horse had a promising future, and Mars began drawing comparisons to another young guitarist named Eddie Van Halen of a rival club band named Mammoth. Mick Mars and Eddie Van Halen were the 2 hottest guitar players in LA. There probably weren't 2 better guitar players on the planet, said Valentine. Mars eventually left White Horse when the band decided to play disco music in the hopes of achieving greater success. He then joined a pop group called Video Noir and released the singles Gypsy Woman or You Drive Me Crazy in 1978 and Work or Decadence Plus in 1979. These singles marked Mars' recording debut. After nearly a decade of frustration on the California club circuit, he made the decision to reinvent himself. He shaved off his trademark mustache, changed his legal name from Bob Deal to Mick Mars, and dyed his hair jet black, hoping for a fresh start. In April 1980, he placed an ad in the LA newspaper, The Recycler, describing himself as a loud, rude, and aggressive guitar player in need of a band. Nikki, Sixx, and Tommy Lee, who were putting together a new band which would soon become Motley Crue, contacted him and hired him after hearing him play. Lee opened the door and recalled, "He's standing there, looking like Cousin Itt from the Addams Family," and immediately turned to Sixx and said, "This is our guy. He's perfect. He's disgusting and scary." The name Motley Crue came about at the suggestion of Mars. In the early days of White Horse, someone had referred to the band as a motley-looking crew, and Motley Crue was a name they had initially considered using. Sixx liked the name, and subsequently altered it to Motley Crue. One of the most influential heavy metal groups of the 1980s, Motley Crue, has sold over 100 million albums worldwide. They have also achieved 7 multiplatinum and 5 platinum US certifications, 9 top 10 albums on the Billboard 200 chart, 22 top 40 mainstream rock hits, and 6 top 20 pop singles. While Motley Crue gained a well-deserved reputation for partying, Mars was never a fan of drugs. "I went, please don't ever do smack. You can't make music when you're falling down," he told his bandmates when heroin began to enter the picture. He did, however, develop a serious drinking problem after joining the band. During the recording of their Doctor Feelgood album in 1989, reportedly, Mars used so many amplifiers on his guitar that sounds of his guitar could be heard on the recordings of Aerosmith's album Pump, which was being recorded in the same studio at the time. When the band made the decision to fire vocalist John Corabi and reunite with original vocalist Vince Neil in 1997 for Generation Swine, Mars was not involved in the decision-making process. Corabi said they had no respect for Mick. Mick was just the grumpy old bastard to them. Sixx and Lee gave Mick shit about his finances and the girls he dated. He'd been dealing with over 20 years of this. Mars refers to the Generation Swine era as his only regret as a member of Motley Crue, as the band erased much of what he recorded in the studio and hired session guitarists instead. Mars also claims that he had little involvement in 2000's New Tattoo, saying, "I didn't write any of those songs since I wasn't invited. I think I got one lick on that album." Sixx has denied this claim, saying that this is during the period that Mars had disintegrated into opiate addiction. On 2008 Saints of Los Angeles guitarist DJ Ashba recorded the vast majority of the guitar parts, though his work was uncredited. Sixx has said that the band had no choice, claiming that Mick was struggling to play his parts. Motley Crue reunited in 2018 and started touring again in 2022. However, several years away from the band had convinced Mars that he never wanted to tour again. He made it clear to his bandmates that he was open to recording again, but could not handle another world tour, as he could no longer move his head from side to side and was permanently hunched over. Mars says he has never had a close offstage relationship with any of his Motley Crue bandmates. For all of his professional career, Mars has openly struggled with ankylosing spondylitis, a chronic inflammatory form of arthritis that mainly affects the spine and pelvis. He says the pain began when he was 14 years old with sharp pain at the top of his tailbone. He did not get a proper diagnosis until he was 27, and the condition has caused him a great deal of pain and increasingly impaired his movement throughout his life. He has said that although the condition can be quite painful, he is grateful that ankylosing spondylitis rarely affects the hands and feet. By late 2001, the excruciating pain caused by ankylosing spondylitis led to addiction issues with OxyContin, Vicodin and Lortab. He was also drinking heavily and taking as many as 45 Advil a day. Mars rarely left his home or even went outside during this period. He says, "I used to see giant reptile aliens at the end of my bed." Sixx claims that Mars eventually moved into his house, and that he actually had to spoon-feed Mars since he was so fucked up. Over the years, the illness has caused his lower spine to seize up and freeze completely solid, causing scoliosis in his back and squashing him further down and forward, until he was a full 3 inches shorter than he was in high school. Mars reported in 2013 that his neck is so stiff he could not even turn his head, preventing him from driving a car. The condition led to hip replacement surgery at the end of 2004. In spite of the pain, Mars refuses to use a cane or a wheelchair, saying, "If I can't get up there myself, I'm not doing it."